I'm Carrington McDuffie. This is Star Seeds of Freedom. And I, in my most recent post, said that I was going to offer some music and some esoteric readings, but things are popping off. We got to get down to business, and I'm very pleased and lucky to have someone with me today to help out with that. Today's guest is one of the most seasoned and fearless war correspondents of our time. Michael Yon is a former U.S. Army Special Forces soldier turned independent journalist known for embedding with frontline troops in Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond. His powerful dispatches and raw photography, including that iconic little girl photo from Mosul, have captured both the horror and humanity of modern conflict. So now, self-funded, I want to mention that, and we'll say more about that, and unflinchingly honest, which is thrilling, and that's one of the reasons he's here today. Michael has reported from over 80 countries, most recently focusing on mass migration routes. We'll talk about that today too, Panama, Darien Gap, etc. And of course, global hotspots. Michael, thank you so much for making the time to be with me today, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Carrington. And we were just discussing our risk game.
We're going to talk about that.
You were dominating. You're a globalist.
My military strategy.
You're a globalist. Anyway, and quite good at it, I might add. So, a gift for strategy. Well, now I'm in Texas. I'm speaking of strategy. I was just down in Panama. And as you know, Panama is one of the most important places on earth for a lot of countries, especially our country.
Yes.
And now Panama is really, well, I've spent more than a year there since Biden was installed. I was at the inauguration for Biden, if you want to call it that. I'll just call it the installation.
Yeah.
Then I flew down to El Paso immediately, like within 24 hours or so, and was on the border, because I thought they were probably going to start flooding the border. And they did immediately. The invasion really picked up right when Biden, it was like a starting gun, bang.
Yeah.
And so then from there, Chuck Colton and Misako Ganaha and I, we flew to Colombia, and we went to the Darien Gap on the Colombian side. And that was quite dangerous. And then the flood was starting there with, invaders to the United States. They'll go through the Colombian, a lot of, because South America is a big funnel. So people can get in from all over the world to South America, like Chinese and others often will go to Quito first, Ecuador. Others will go to Brazil first or Venezuela. They'll come through various routes. But the bottom line is they funnel through Colombia. And in Colombia, they go through the Darien Gap. And then they come out on the Darien Gap on the Panama side, get on Highway 1. Before you know it, they're burning down things in Los Angeles, waving Mexican flags when some of them are probably not even Mexican, right? And they're murdering people like Lake and Riley, like one of the people who came through Darien Gap, Jose Ibarra. He actually came through the Darien Gap. A guy more recently who shot a Jewish guy. He came through the Darien Gap. He was from Mauritania. He came through on January 3rd, 2023. And the two people who were arrested recently in connection with the death of Ava Moore, the Air Force Academy 18-year-old, she was a cadet here up in Texas. She was killed in some jet ski related incident.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so the two people who were arrested in connection with that both came through the Darien Gap. And a long list more, actually. I could keep going. But at the end of the day, I have a list of more than 1 million people that came through the Darien Gap during Biden's time. I think there was about 1.4 million. That's probably accurate within maybe 5%, or certainly not more than 10% off. And the reason I know that is because I was so long down there, but I'm missing some of the months of the records. And so I'm extrapolating from what I have to those other. But I've got 1.05 million records, and we know that there was a lot more that came that are not in the records, and many of these people are coming and committing rapes and murders and arson and that sort of thing. But that's not the only route that they came in. Many came through the northern border, Canada. Others come through the Bahamas border because they come up on the beaches of Florida. For instance, Chinese come up on the beaches of Florida, as do Haitians and others. Others just take vacations up to Mexico. A lot of Chinese will go on vacation up to, for instance, Cancun. We know some
Hmm.
of them go to Cancun, some go to Mexico City and other places in Mexico. So they get a tourist visa and they actually do vacations. And then they come across very fresh. And there's others who start in Nicaragua, like a lot of the Haitians and others who used to come through the Darien, a lot still do, but or not at the moment, since Trump's got it has been in office, the flow through the Darien is down to certainly less than 1% of what it used to be. But the architecture is still there to continue this later. But a lot of people that used to go through the Darien, they now go further. They start further north. They'll start in Nicaragua. And so because Nicaragua, hates the United States and it's we don't have a great relationship, obviously. So a lot of the Cubans and the Haitians and others now go through Nicaragua. They start at Nicaragua, they fly in, and then they get on the buses and that sort of thing. So
Hmm.
others come in on student visas. We see Trump just made his incredible China deal, allowing the Chinese to continue to come on student visas, which my whole box is filled with today from people like Epoch Times and Vandersteel and my friends, and everybody's really upset that Trump is doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you need to listen to Big Honey. That's my call sign on the radio is Big
Yeah.
Honey, right?
Yeah.
At Big Honey 6, right? Yeah,
Yep.
6 is commander, right?
Yep.
And in military. And so uh because I've been saying this all along that nothing that's happening has surprised me at all, right? If your paradigm, how you're looking at things is a usable and workable paradigm, you should never feel surprised. Anytime we feel surprised, whenever I feel the emotion of surprise, I'm like, okay, how did I get this wrong? Was my
Hmm.
information wrong, or am I looking at it wrong, or both? Right? Something's wrong if I'm surprised, you should always keep mount, using your paradigm and reworking it, or just throw it out. Don't get married to your paradigm.
Yeah, that's a
And
good.
and so how, but in my paradigm, Trump is not on our side. That's my paradigm, right? It is extremely usable because it's highly predictive, right? And I'm never surprised at anything that he does, right? Or doesn't do. I'm not surprised that we're not taking down the United Nations right now. I'm not surprised at all. Now, it angers a lot of my supporters. I lose a huge amount of support. People say bad things, don't help me go to do these missions and things. And I get it. I get it. But if you want 24 karat information and not fool's gold, when I come back with this stuff, and listen, how did I predict the Nord Stream destruction so far in advance, so many times that Masako Ganaha and we went to the BASF plant in Germany twice before the Nord Stream was destroyed. The second time we were at BASF plant because on the Rhine River in Germany in Ludwigshafen, we were there because that would be the one most affected by Nord Stream disruption. That's why, right? And I thought if these globalists want to cause famines and deindustrialize Europe, what would I do? I did a normal Carver matrix. All the serious CIA people and the special operations type people know what I'm talking about with a Carver matrix. It's a planning tool for target selections, right? So I did a Carver matrix and I'm like, what would I hit if I had their kind of resources and their kind of sophisticated knowledge? What would I do? I would take out Germany. If I want to deindustrialize Europe, I'm going to hit Germany.
Yeah.
If I'm going to hit Germany and do multiple things at once, what would I do? I would take out Nord Stream and I would take out BASF. Actually, if I take out Nord Stream, I'm going to really mitigate BASF. So we went there twice. In fact, I bought a separate iPad and all I did was this. There was a website where you could follow the cubic meters per second that are going through Nord Stream pipelines, right? And I just had it beside me for months when I was working. And occasionally I would glance at it and it's like, it's always fluctuating. And at one point it went to zero. I said,
Mm.
And so restarted it, started asking people. Next thing you know, natural gas is bubbling up to the surface of the sea. And that was gone. Then I went to back to Netherlands. I often would leave Panama and go to the Netherlands because the Netherlands is another big target based on just other Carver Matrix stuff. And they want to build this place called Tri-State City there. The globalists want to build a city that's for about 30 million people that includes almost all of Netherlands, part of Belgium, and part of Germany. And they call it Tri-State City because it's those three states, not countries, tri-state, right? And so I would go to Netherlands, and I started predicting, like on the Jordan Peterson show, I predicted that I think they're going to close Groningen gas field, and people are like, they're never going to close Groningen gas field because it's the biggest gas field in Europe. And I said, because it's the biggest gas field in Europe, right? And they did close it, right? Yeah. They didn't close all of it, but they closed the main part of it. And they not only did they close it, they didn't just turn off the water spigot like we've done to the so-called migration, which is actually invasion. Yeah. We've turned off the water spigot. The architecture's still in place. You can turn it back on. Not so with Groningen gas field. They destroyed it. They destroyed the architecture. You're not just going to turn it back on, right? And so it's gone. And like has happened with some of the coal-fired plants, they blow them up, right? I mean, they really honestly destroy them. Yeah. So that's not just turning them off like, hey, we're going to close the doors. And so, sorry, my microphone fell down. I'm traveling and I don't have the stand.
You're still in there. Yeah, your sound is good. Your audio is good. I don't think people can understand how horror-oriented the globalists are, so they can't picture that gas field being, they just can't even picture it.
But my paradigm is that it's multiple, there's different globalists. So I have slightly different paradigms depending on which one I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. With CCP, which I've written 3 books on their information war. Those books are only in Japanese. So if you don't speak Japanese, don't worry about it because they're not in English. But I've been to China quite a lot. I've been all over Asia quite a lot. I spent about almost 20 years in Asia. I spent a year running in and around China, like, Tibet and Shanghai and Xi'an and all those places, right? And so, I've seen a lot, and I've researched Chinese information war quite a lot. So I've got a paradigm for them. We basically know what they're up to. They are the Han Chinese, the Chinese Communist Party, want to make the world actually genetically Chinese. So they want us all dead. They want all the blacks, all the Hispanics, all the other Asians, including Japanese. They want everybody. They want everybody dead, right? Yeah. They want the Thais gone, the Indians gone, and who knows? They might be able to pull it off because we're in an age of different sorts of weapons. I don't know, but they are risk takers. They're habitual gamblers, so there's nothing that would stop them from trying, right? And they will. And so that's one set, because the globalists aren't one thing. The globalists are many. There's many species of globalists, right? Globalists, look, the whole game of Risk is about globalism, right? It's like that's straight up,
Yeah.
But there's many species of globalists, right? And there's how many cults and religions have wanted to rule the world or still want to, right? It's a lot. I don't think anybody can name them all, right? And then there are people that are economic globalists. There are people that are genetic globalists. They don't want the world to be any particular religion other than, say, communist, right? There's communism is a globalist sort of thing. Of course, we've been trying to spread democracy around the world, and that's another form of actually, if you look at the United States and our history, which I study constantly, you can see that some of our reconnaissance, for instance, from Japan in 1853, 54, Commodore Perry was there opening up Japan. You should see the reconnaissance that he did. I've got the report to Congress. I found it in an antique bookstore. It's like it's almost a meter tall. It's not a meter. It's like half a meter tall. It's 4 big books, right? Actually, if you look online, you'll see 3 books, but there's actually a 4th book with maps, and I've got it all, right? And you should see the incredible reconnaissance that he did. Unbelievable. Works of art in there. He took great artists with him. He took great geographers and all sorts of scientists, and there's a total reconnaissance. Then at the same time, we were doing the same in Panama and around the world. We were in the maps that we were making were resource maps, right? Yeah. They were like you look at the maps from 1895ish of of Japan and China, these were in the Panama Canal, the Isthmus report in 1899 or 1900 to Congress. I've got that actually, and it's got maps of these countries around the world, and it's just the resources. It's
Yeah.
like Japan. It's like, here's the copper, here's the silver, here's the some sort of timber and different stuff. So we're not the only ones, but I'm not picking on the United States. I'm deeply American, very deeply American, but I'm recognizing that I can't make accurate predictions if I'm just going to always give us a pass while always saying it's some other person doing it. We do
Sure.
it straight
Yeah.
up, right?
Yeah.
But we're not the only one. We've got the Russians have no ability to take over the world. They just don't have it. Chinese do. I mean, they've got the numbers and they've got the sort of cultural firmware where they could, over a long period of time, say the next century, they could pull it off, or they could hyperspace that with maybe some sorts of biological warfare that are, using advanced techniques, targeting genetics or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but but we always know that weapons are advancing very, very quickly now. Like, for instance, I just got word about 30 minutes ago that the attacks that just happened in Israel in Iran, Israel had put drones inside of Iran and actually launched some of the attacks from inside of Iran, and were
Oh,
controlling some of the attacks back in wherever it was. Tel Aviv is what I was told. I don't know where they're actually controlling them from. But I mean, so in other words, there's all kinds of different ways, just like the attacks that just happened in Russia when the bombers, it was probably similar to that, I'm guessing. I don't know. But I mean, but at the end of the day, there are so many more types of weapons. Many of many of the globalists want to depopulate us, and that is an old idea. That's nothing new. That didn't just pop up at the World Economic Forum or the creeps up there. That, I mean, you can find books from the 1800s where they're talking about that, like a lot, right?
yeah. Yeah.
How the king should control the population of his people in times of boom, when you need more people. How do we have more babies real quick? Oh, we've got too many people. What do we do with them? Send them away or starve them or what?
Yeah.
I
Drop
mean, these
something in a
techniques have.
well.
Oh yeah, like for instance, starvation. Look what Stalin did in the Holodomor and other famines. The Holodomor that he did over in Ukraine, and so famines have always been a weapon of war. The Irish, of course, were genocided in their famine. Well, they've had a lot of famines, but the big Irish famine, the potato famine, was arguably between about 1845 and 54. People argue about the actual dates, but anyway, say in that general time frame. And I've actually gone to Ireland researching that. It's pretty interesting in researching other things. The Irish, they then reduced their population dramatically, and they spread around the world. I mean, that's why you had Irish popping up in Australia and South America and here in the United States, all over Texas,
Yeah.
and because of the food problems. I mean, imagine getting off the boat from Ireland and being handed a musket in the 1860s and saying, "Go fight those rednecks." You
Right.
know, because my
Did you
people
say
from the South.
rednecks?
Yeah, my people from the South, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, that, well, a lot of the Irish would have been in the South as well, but but at the end of the day, there's so many species of Ireland of globalists. And the Germans, of course, and the Dutch and the Spanish. Spanish went full bore for it. But one of the problems that the Spanish had, especially they really went full globalist in the 1500s. They were getting good at it, but they made some strategic errors. They were running around looking for river mouths all over the place.
Yeah.
When they found that, in the late 1490s, and the Americas were not on the maps.
Right.
They came over and found Cuba and thought it was Japan,
Right.
and
Right.
they literally thought it was Japan, and then found Central America and all that. They thought it was India. Of course, that's why we call them Indians still,
Right.
and which Americans all know that. But the Spaniards, they were looking for those Indian tribes, because that's how you find the gold. You're not out there with a metal detector.
Right.
Your metal detector is the Indians,
Yeah.
because everybody loves gold and silver. It's shiny, and for whatever reason, gold seems to have some kind of magical quality that makes people want to touch it.
Yes.
It does. I
It
mean,
does.
gold really draws your
Yeah,
hand to
it
it.
has an attraction. It does. Silver
Yeah,
has a different kind. They both do have sort of a magic, but gold
they
is
do.
Yeah.
But do you
Anyway.
ever just pick up iron and play with iron? And for some reason, gold will attract the hand, and silver does too, like you
Yeah.
said.
They both
And
do.
and it's real money, and
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing you can do to gold to mess it up. Throw it out
Mm-hmm.
in the rain, throw it in the salt water, throw it in the fresh water. It
And that.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just take and brush it off, and it's shiny again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Heat it with a hammer, throw it in the freezer, heat it up and melt it, and let it run down the road.
Yes,
It's
it's
still
kind
gold.
of
So,
it's like a concretization of eternity. It's just you can't change it. Yeah.
yeah. So the
Silver's different, but
Spaniards. Oh, sorry.
no, well just yeah, the Spaniards, please continue. They were after
Oh,
gold.
oh,
Yeah.
they got that gold and a lot of it, and then of course the English are like, "Hey, Spanish are getting a lot of gold," so they started doing hardcore pirating. Right? There was
Hmm.
some serious piracy in Panama, all over the Caribbean and everywhere else. I mean, hardcore pirate battles there in Panama,
And the
and
Carib
because
Indians were no joke either back then, right? I mean, they
oh
got wiped out, but they were a tough
yeah.
race. Anyway,
Oh, there were quite a lot. Kuna are still around. I'm out with Kuna. Actually, Kuna just asked for support from China a couple days ago
oh great.
in Panama. Yeah, I know it. I mean, I've been warning about that. Their flag is flying at a Chinese memorial next to the canal. I just took Laura Logan down there a couple months ago and showed it to her. I'm like, look, here's the Kuna Revolution flag right at the Chinese memorial. Coincidence? Maybe. Uh, but but the Spanish, they were collecting all that gold and silver, and they made the mistake that we made with China. They started, they're suddenly rich with real money, gold and silver. So they started, instead of making their own manufacturing base, they started buying their ships from people like the Dutch and the English. They're the ones making the ships. They're the ones who can make a serious navy. So
Hmm.
the Dutch are suddenly with a lot more gold because they're making ships, and the English are making ships. And so they build up serious navies, right? Anybody that's read, the Alfred Mahan knows what I'm talking about. His 1890 book. That's an incredible book. The history of sea power. Between 1660 and 17 something, 1770, 17. It doesn't matter. 1766, I think. Anyway, it's a great book, and he talks about these things. How the Spaniards were, they had a lot of gold, and the Portuguese too. The Portuguese were pulling that gold out of Brazil. The Spanish were pulling it out of everywhere else. The Spanish claiming the whole world, basically, Philippines, the whole works. And but they weren't manufacturing their own stuff. So when they get
Mm-hmm.
into battles with people like the English, which they did, and the Dutch, which they did,
Mm-hmm.
when the Spanish lose a ship, they can't just remake it real quick. But the Dutch sure can, and the English, they got, at one point the English had 8,000 ships, 8,000 ships, right? Not 800, 8,000, right? I mean, we're talking about mega navies,
And
right? And
especially then, and the population then. And as you're talking about this not being able to replenish your navy and giving away your manufacturing and so forth, and the fact that part of the war that we're in now, because I feel like we're in wars within wars within wars, is a cyber war. And meanwhile, our chips are all made in Taiwan. But I digress. Please go back to where
oh,
you're going with the
so
levels of globalists.
yeah, so the Dutch and the English start buying farmland like in Portugal, right? Who's doing that to us now, right? China. So, we got all this gold and money, and we're like, we can just make our stuff in China, which is what the Spaniards and the Portuguese did. We'll just get our ships made by our enemies. That sounds like a plan. And that's what we've been doing, getting our enemies to make our stuff,
Yeah,
including our chips,
yeah,
right? All, and literally ships, not our Navy ships, but other. It's just over the top
yeah.
historic. That's why I read so much history, because you can see what happened to Spain. Spain could have ruled the world had they been smarter about how they did things. If they made their own ships and that sort of thing, they would have dominated the world.
But
But
it's
they didn't.
right. And here, same thing as you're saying, you look at history because it repeats itself because of human apparently nature. But here I feel like there has been an infiltration, and it isn't necessarily that the people in charge, or at least those who originally formed this country or formed a template for this country, were stupid, but infiltrated by globalists, right?
Deeply. Everything you touch touches you. And whether that be physical or psychological fusion, right? If two types of music meet in the same village, they'll end up being a third song that comes out of that two types of music, right?
Yeah.
Language is the same. And likewise with governments. When governments start touching each other and interacting, they're going to through actual spies or through just intermarriage or whatever,
Yeah.
you end up like right now we're completely infiltrated by, you know, I mean we're it's not like just kudzu grew over us. I mean we're like salt water. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when people talk about, you know, the Mexican US border, which I've been across the entire US border, it took a long time, and I've been in a lot of it on the Mexican side, but you look at the populations down there, and a lot of Americans seem to think, you know, this is America and that's Mexico. It's like, no, there's a brackish water area there, which is neither river nor sea. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
it's that fusion zone. And I
Well,
see these
right.
all over the world, by the way. I see these all over the world. In some places, it's just a sharp divide. This is Thailand and that's Laos. But actually, in big parts of Thailand, a lot of people speak Lao as well, so that they have it there as well. But
Mm-hmm.
in some places you can have a sharp divide. But if you go on the French German border, there's people there that speak their own dialect, which is a little bit of both.
Sure.
Same with the Dutch, right? And so, and you go to Belgium. Belgium is like, if you ever tried to understand what makes Belgium run, it's like understanding quantum mechanics or something. I mean, it's like a country you can fit in your pocket, but it's more complicated than
Right.
China. You know
Well,
what I
look,
mean?
because look where they are in the middle of everything. They've got to absorb all of that and control all of that and all these vectors coming in, right?
Oh,
Represented by languages.
every time I talk with a Dutch person, I'm like, let's just stop and get out a whiteboard and, you know, explain this, because this is like, I can't keep track of all the complexity of that little country, but it is. It's a river. Many people meet right there. Of course, Belgium and Netherlands are, you know, access to the sea right there too. So
Yes.
keep in mind that
Yes.
access to the sea that so many countries have, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, England, of course, and that's one of the things that brought them into connection with the world, right?
Yeah.
And a huge part. But actually, Africa has access to the sea, but for whatever reason, the Africans never built clipper ships, right? So there's some people that do and some don't. And Europeans, Chinese, I mean, especially Europeans, they really got out there and got it on. Now, the Chinese are trying to do some information war, saying that they were running around the world and exploring everything before the Spaniards were, but I see no evidence of that, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just not in the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some book that came out about what's the name of that book? It's irrelevant, but the bottom line is people keep telling me about it, and I did some research before reading it. And I was like, nah, it's not worth my time, because I study Chinese information more. Like I said earlier, I've written 3 books on it, so most of the time when I see stuff like that, I can kind of sniff it right from the beginning and tell if it's worth my time or if it's just another information. Because the Chinese are trying to claim that they basically, you know, at one point, maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, I said at one point China is going to say that they're the first ones who mapped the moon, and therefore they have a, you know, dibs on the moon. And then they did a few years later, because that's how they roll. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, our guy was the first to see that island, therefore it's ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our guy was the first to see Mars, and therefore, you know, U.S. is going to have to pay us to land there or something. They haven't said that, but that is how they roll, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately, might makes right, but with this kind of warfare, with information war, and we could touch on fifth generation war if that's something you want to also get into. There's so much to talk about here, but with brainwashing, you don't even need the might makes right. And look what's happening right now in the United States. Um, it seems like that's part of what we're seeing is the mind control.
Oh yeah. The only cult people never see is the cult they're in, right? You see everybody else's cult. Everybody else's cult's really obvious, but
Yeah.
if you're in a cult, it's like, nope, mine is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Right. And so that circles me back around to Trump. And I wonder if you're talking about all the hints that anyone could have seen from his, who support, who's supported his campaign run Palantir, blah, 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 all that stuff. Um, I don't know if you want to go down that road with this.
I do all the time.
Okay.
That's why, you know, that's why a lot of the big podcasts, I'm radioactive. I mean, they ask me for information all the
Hmm.
time, but you know, Giuliani interviewed me about a month ago. They never ran it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Because of
anyway,
that? Because of that in particular?
Actually, when he was interviewing me, I didn't say it, but before I went on with him, I'm like, I can't believe that they must not have done their homework.
Yeah.
Actually, I briefed him a couple days after January 6th for a couple days actually,
Uh-huh.
and but I mean, they know I know what I'm talking about. They know I know my stuff, but they know I'm not on Team Trump.
Yeah.
I'm on Team America, right? And
Yes.
I'm obviously not on Team Biden. I'm not
Right.
on
Right.
team like when I went after Abbott here in Texas. I'm in Texas now, as you know. At the people are like, "Who do you want, Beto?" And I'm like, "No, this is
Well,
that red pill
no,
blue pill
exactly. So this
bullshit."
red blue thing, and I think people get really hung up on, oh, the Democrats and the Republicans. It's so far beyond that. To me, it's about sovereignty or not, and everyone, like as you said, because boundaries aren't really that strict. It's all infiltrated, and you have to just know specifically who you're dealing with. So I love that you say that you're on Team America because not only because this is my home, but also because I do think this is the one country, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'd like to know, but this is the one country that actually did have a template for sovereignty and freedom in its formation. And now freedom here is more of a slogan than anything else, it seems to me, although there's some of us who still really, truly, deeply believe in it. But this is where we've come to with it. I feel like this country, please, if it can't happen here, I don't know if it can happen anywhere. So correct me now.
No, I agree. I'm from the United States. I'm American, deeply American. I was in the US Army, very proud that I was in, very happy I got out too.
Yeah.
Actually, if special forces weren't in the army, I would still be in. But they used to have to tell me, Jan, your name tag says your tag says US Army, not US Special Forces. And I'd be
Oh.
like, see, that's a problem because I love special forces, but the army, you're wasting my time. And so the but the but the but I grew up in Florida and joined the army. My family came over since my mother's side got shipwrecked on Bermuda in 1609. They're in a book called The Sea Venture. They were heading to Jamestown, right? And they got shipwrecked for 10 months, had
Wow.
to build a new ship, went to Jamestown. They're named in there, right? It's like my uncle was born there. Bermudez was his name. And they named him Bermudez after Bermuda.
Hmm.
Eason, Eason. That's my mother's side. I mean, I don't know anything but America. I'm not like European American. I'm
Right.
not any of that stuff. I'm
Yeah.
American,
Yeah.
full stop. And but I've been all over the world. So after I grew up and went all over the world, I've been all over the United States too, except for Alaska. I can't believe I haven't been to Alaska.
Mm.
But I went to school in California twice. I lived in Ohio and Massachusetts and North Carolina and Georgia and oh Lord, I've been all over this place, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I'm in Texas now. I
Hmm.
love Texas, but guess what? Florida's leading the way right now. But
Right,
anyway,
because and let's not skip over the Texas governor when it's time to get back to that. But
oh
finish
yeah,
your thought
he's
about being
trash.
American. Yeah.
Oh, but I've been all over this world. I've been to 99 countries. So most of my life is downrange. I mean, that bio, wherever you found it, it's kind of off actually, but it's more or less accurate. But I've been to 99 countries now.
General. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to find that and it's not on my website, I hope. And
No, no,
and
I had to put something together quickly. So,
oh, but yeah, I've like I just came in from Panama to Texas, and when I leave here, I'll go to Japan, right, and then back to Panama and that sort of thing. So I'm doing a strategic reconnaissance, right?
hmm.
I'm going to key places around the world. It's not random places that I go to, but what I'm getting to is back to what you were bringing up. Is there's no country like America.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And we are letting it go. We're letting it be
Exactly.
destroyed. We're letting it rust and be chipped away.
Yeah.
And that's why, at this point in my life, I wanted to write books because I have seen enough to write about. I've written six, but I should be writing more about quite a few things. But what am I going to do? Watch my country be destroyed? Actually, what I should probably do is just go ahead and stop and write books about the particulars of that, so that it's more of a condensed format that people can see some of the things that are going on that affect us all over the world. And people look at places like Japan as if no, that's something separate. Oh no, it's not. It's all. That's why my three books on Chinese information war are only in Japanese.
Hmm.
because Japan is such an important ally, and China is trying to break us apart from
Yes.
Korea and Japan and the United States. And they have broken Korea and Japan in exactly the way that I said that I thought that they would. And now they have, right? I started warning about that in 2014. I wrote the 3 books. And then in 2019, it was a specific information war. And then in 2019, that information war, it grew fruit. There was a court decision. There were court decisions in Korea that ordered Japan to pay huge amounts of money for World War II stuff.
Yeah.
And then this caused Korea and Japan to have a hard split, stop sharing intelligence, stop doing military exercises together. See, that's the kind of effects you can have with information war. And most people don't even know. They don't realize that was actually like a kinetic attack on the mind, right? It actually
Yes.
split intelligence sharing between two key allies.
Yeah.
So now we got a family fight, right?
Yeah.
And because it was instant. Now we have the same in Panama. Like the 7 tribes down there have all united. They didn't just randomly unite because they won't. I mean, they fight each other, but now they've united against the government, and they've united with Suntrax, which is a communist labor organization down there. And just a couple of days ago, the Kuna Indians have asked China for help and security. And I'm like, this is exact. And again, I just took Laura Logan recently and others like Masako Ganaha and Ann Vandersteel. All these key people I've taken to this Chinese memorial where there is a Kuna Indian revolutionary flag, and it's at the Chinese memorial. That's not a coincidence, right? China is behind a lot of this stuff. China's
Yeah.
behind a lot of the stuff that you see going on in the United States. They're not
Yes.
the only one behind it, but they're one of the big players, and it's becoming increasingly obvious. Meanwhile, Trump's like, hey, you can keep coming to our universities. And everybody's all surprised on all my chats this morning and yesterday. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? You need to stop listening to yourself and stop listening to everybody else and listen to who's getting it right.
Yeah.
I'm continuously getting it right because I don't care. I've been to so much war and combat and seen so much stuff. I'm way beyond caring about hurting people's feelings.
Yes. Right.
I'm in this to save my United States. I'm
And
not
I,
here to save Israel or
yeah,
Ukraine
no, no,
or
no,
some
no,
country out in the.
no. And I think people get attached. People got really attached. So as much as there is a Trump derangement syndrome, there's also an attachment to Trump that kind of
Trump
counterbalances that.
derangers, and it has, on
And it's
this
two sides. Yeah, yeah. So having said
three
what you
deviations either way.
So, having said what you've said about being able to see about the pipeline and so many things that have eventuated, given where we are now, and of course you would have and you did predict the invasion that we're now experiencing, and don't anybody call it anything else because when you have armed people who coming across your border, waving their own flags, that's an invasion.
Yeah.
Uh, so where are we going from here, and what? Okay, this is a really broad question, but we're focusing on the USA for a moment, with everything else as part of that story. Where do we go tomorrow? I mean, the Israel bombing Iran, the timing of that can't possibly be coincidence, given that tomorrow is this day that big uprising is being fomented here in the U.S. How does this fit together, and what are you seeing now that you wish people would be able to see? Same as you saw the pipeline. Can you direct us there?
Yeah. First, be very careful of your sources. Way over 98% of your sources are not going to be worth the time. Time is our most valuable resource, right? Now, one of the things that I would do to get rid of the mud is anybody that said the war in Ukraine is going to be over quickly, don't listen to them. The people that said the war with Gaza, we're going to whip up on them in a couple of weeks and it'll be over, don't listen to them. They're obviously wrong on major stuff, major stuff. And yet the same people that were, I'm watching these same ecosystems, the same ones that are like, let's do this, let's do that. They're like, let's go get Iran, right? Wars do 4 things very reliably. My not Nostradamus, they call it Yonstradamus hat is on now, right?
Okay.
And so, and I've adopted that because sometimes people say it, and how do I get these things right? I get it right because I study like Rain Man 7 days a week, for decades on end, right? It adds up after a while. I traveled to all these countries. I'm with the generals. I'm with the leaders. I'm with the farmers. And at some point, you pick up your pulse, right? At some point, an oncologist can walk into a room and smell cancer, right? I've reached that level. And I've reached that level at least maybe 15 years ago. I mean, where I started to get to be, I trust my intuition more than I trust all these analysts because I
That's
keep getting it right.
yeah. Well, your
I'm not,
intuition.
and how am I getting it right? I'm getting it right because I used to study physics maniacally when I was a kid. Like I was failing school because I only loved physics. And when you're reading, because I thought that's where you could find truth, right? I thought that's where you could find 24 karat truth would
Yes.
be in physics, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm reading all these scientists, they're all these physicists, they're teaching you not what to think, but how to think,
Yeah.
how to do your own thinking hygiene, how to self audit to when, oh, no, what I'm thinking is illogical, or no, I'm thinking that because that's the way I want it to be, right?
Yes.
You know, the Gell-Mann effect, of course, is quite real and all these different things, right? And so, so over the, you know, when I was in a teenage years, I would write down predictions and I would write down a percentage, like 60% chance I think such and such. I'm not talking about weather and stuff like that, but and then you just be brutal in your self-assessment. You get to the point where you can, wow, you're like, I'm getting better at predictions. I'm getting better because I'm writing down my predictions just for me and I'm assigning, and then I'm doing the math later and seeing, wow, my number is actually getting, I'm getting more and more accurate because I'm learning how to think more clearly, right? And it's like going to a mental gym, actually. And so, you know, over time, I started getting really accurate when I applied that to war stuff, right? And especially because I go on the ground so much. So so you need the paradigm that's workable and usable. A paradigm should do two things. It should leave you not surprised. Anytime you feel the emotion of surprise, you need to check your paradigm and or your information, right? And it should be very predictive. If the input information is sufficiently clean from the mud, you should be able to predict much better than all these so-called CIA analysts, right? And so, and then you should self-audit, write these things down, and don't tell anybody so you don't feel bad when you're wrong. And you're going to watch. You're going to start getting better and better and better, and to the point where you start to trust your own judgment. And so, a lot. And so that's why I come out and said, don't go to the Ukraine war. I was up in Lithuania talking about that, right? I was like, don't do this. Russia might end up taking all of Lithuania. I mean, I'm sorry. I was in Lithuania. Russia might take all of Ukraine. I don't know how it's going to fold out. I don't know, but the way it kind of feels, knowing the things, you know, I can see where it could. Yeah. And likewise, now, if you want to be accurate on your war predictions, just predict these four things every time, and people are going to start thinking you're a genius because you're going to be right almost every time, which is what do wars do? They grow. Wars grow. They grow. So if you say, if they ask me what do I think is going to happen with the Iran thing, I'm saying it's probably going to grow. You know, I'm cheating because I know the answer. It's going to grow. Yeah. And then number two is it's going to grow unpredictably. So people will say this, that, or the other, but then the next thing you know, there's going to be something else happens, or I don't know, an asteroid hits or whatever. You know, it's going to grow unpredictably, right? It's going to last longer than you expect.
Yes.
Look at the Ukraine war now. Look at Gaza. Oh, we're going to whip up on Gaza and they're going to surrender. Nope, they didn't. It's going to last longer than you expected. That's number three. And number four is, in the bingo cards, the winners and losers often aren't what anybody expected. I mean, it's often very complex. And actually, the wars often never quite actually end.
No, they don't end, and there aren't really winners and losers. It doesn't work that. Look at World War II,
yeah.
And it's also how's it written up. And then that's part of the brainwashing, right?
Yeah, so if
and then that's part of the winning is being in a position to do the brainwashing. But sorry, go ahead.
Anytime you feel surprised, you got to stop. Okay, why did I feel surprised? Why am I surprised? Okay, I was surprised during the pandemic at one point. Like, I was surprised. I was like, why would Trump be allowing these people to come in, stopping direct flights from China, but they can go through another country and come to us? That's a surprise. And I say, wait a minute, why am I surprised? I mean, why? Because he's not stupid.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, you know, that you would let them go through Indonesia and then come to the United States, or some like, for instance, the Australians would not let people come in directly from Hong Kong. back to university. I was in Hong Kong when it broke out, and so the Hong Kongers were like, "This is crazy because we can go to Indonesia and then fly over to Australia." And they're like, "Are they stupid?" I mean, everybody, but
So
they're
that's
not stupid.
PR. That's
It's just
PR.
PR. Like we're
Yeah.
stopping flights from China, but
Yeah.
they're just so you see that. So every time I feel surprised, which is if your paradigm's wrong, you're going to feel it. Every time I feel it, I'm like stop, drop, roll. Right? What's going wrong here? And when it comes to what's happening now with Iran, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at some things that are going to happen. And if you're feeling surprised, you got to audit it and ask myself, why did I get it wrong? Is it my information source? Is it my paradigm? Is it
Mm,
both?
mm,
But I can tell you what I think is going to happen with Iran. I think it's going to grow.
yeah.
I think it's going to grow unpredictably.
Mm,
I think it's going to last a long time. And I don't know who's going to win or lose, right?
yeah.
I mean, and I don't know how it's going to play. I just don't know. It's like solving 10 Rubik's cubes while you're jumping on a pogo stick. You know what I mean?
So yes. So never tried it, but um, but living is like that. Just living from day to day anymore seems like it's like that. The beauty of it is that things are getting more exposed, and so that Rubik's Cube pogo stick jumping job is, you become more aware that that's what you're having to do.
Yeah.
I wonder, so if we look at the situation in the United States now with the with the invasion and with the riots, which are obviously paid for by the same parties who paid for all the Antifa BLMs, it's the same people, right? As far as certain globalists, I think those are probably the same globalists who are doing that because that's how they do that.
Mhm.
Um, and then we have the Marines have been sent into LA as of yesterday. Last I knew, they're just guarding federal buildings.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're uh, authorized to do more than that. But I wonder, since it's going to spread, do we apply the same principles? Well, yes, it's going to spread. It's going to last longer than you think. It's going to spread unpredictably.
Yeah.
Can we say that about, Houston, Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, etc.? Or can we put a lid on this? And
I think at this point, a lid is not in the bingo cards, is my guess. I'll tell you who's a good person to listen to on this is Matt Bracken. He's
okay.
a former Navy SEAL officer. I took him to Darien, actually.
Hmm.
And Matt has been like stunningly accurate with predictions that are 20 years old. I mean, he's really, really accurate. I watched one of his interviews yesterday, and Matt is just, he nails it. And partly because he allows himself to think the illegal thoughts, right?
Yes,
You have
yes.
to take all safeties off I can't think that because that's against you have to be like it. All systems are armed. Flip, 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 flip. I'll think anything. I'll
Mm-hmm.
think, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is possible Trump is a traitor. It
Mm-hmm.
is possible that Israel is trying to help kill us as well. It is
Yes.
possible. In
It,
fact, it's a highly predictable part of my paradigm.
right, right. And
It's
also,
very
is
helpful.
that kind of aligns with I forget whose theory of war this is, but it's not art of war, but don't it's not a question of what they you think they might or might not do. It's a matter of knowing what they can do and prepare for that. So, so in other words, if you're thinking, oh, they'll never do that, that's that same kind of prejudice in your own mind that you might have about, oh, he couldn't be a traitor or whatever, right? You have to think about what they can do, what it could be, and allow for that. And there's
Oh
an
yeah, and I think it's kind of. I mean, how obvious does it have to be that Trump pushed the death jab? And yet, even yesterday, some friends were like, well, Fauci fooled him, and I'm like,
no,
okay, I'm like, is Trump really that stupid?
no,
Because if he is, why would you vote for him?
right.
You
Well,
know, and this is
no,
2025, and he still sticks with it. He
yeah.
literally attacked and has killed many of his voters and supporters.
So,
They are dead now in the grave, right?
right,
It's not
right.
like you might die no, they're
Right.
dead.
No, they're dead. So I thought for a
If
moment
they
there
could,
will.
they would reach up from the grave and vote for him. Some of them would.
So there's a theory, right? There's a theory that what that was about was well, either you have a choice of, the warp speed thing, get it going quicker than than the pharma companies can really be prepared for it, and so you only 500,000 people get killed instead of 1 billion people getting killed, and those are just some of the tough decisions you have to make. That's one of the theories that I heard, and I liked it, I have to say. So I was prejudiced, I suppose, to
Back
think
then,
that.
it makes sense back then.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't very long ago, but
Mm-hmm.
back then we were hit with an industrial strength information war, the likes of which I think has never been seen. So I don't hold anybody like, I study these sorts of things. I've written 3 books on information war. So
Yeah.
I understand how these things are artistically and scientifically developed
Yes.
with millennia
Yes.
of actual experience, right? These
Yeah.
are like cathedrals. These
Yeah.
these information wars are very artistically and scientifically designed, and we're born basically a gazelle surrounded by lions, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
we come out of our mothers and we can barely stand up and the lion's trying
Right.
to get you, right?
Right. Right.
And keep in mind our grandparents were born into similar information wars. So we're like, they were also born into it.
Mm-hmm.
And a few people can cut their way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And those few you often are killed, you know?
Yes. Right.
And
Because they cut
yeah,
their way out of it.
that's right. A great
Yeah.
book to read on this is called Rape of the Mind.
Huh.
Rape of the Mind is from 1956. It's from a Dutch psychologist called named Joost Meerloo.
Hmm.
Rape of the Mind is a great book on this.
Hmm.
But if you're going to read Rape of the Mind, it's very important to do it in a quiet place and think about it as you're reading it, because it's a dense read and you have to think it through. But then you're going to see, wow, not only have we been through this a lot, we're in it now. The red pill or the blue pill is part of the game.
I
Like, here's the
agree.
red.
I'm like, why do I have to take a pill at all?
Yeah, especially from somebody I don't even know his
Yeah.
name.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your name is Morpheus, huh? Morpheus Smith
Yeah. Is that like?
Jones.
Wait a minute. I seem to remember the etymology of that word has to do with. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I'm going to take a pill, and it's a pill.
Mm-hmm.
But by the way, the primary WMD, like was said by in 1965 by what's his name? The rest of the story, Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey in 1965, he was saying one of the things that he would do if he wanted to destroy America would be to spread the drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
Straight up. I mean,
Yes.
that's a primary WMD. That's why I go after dopehead Joe Rogan all the time. And doper Rocket Boy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, I
Yeah.
just talked with some people last night that are quite familiar with Rocket Boy, and it's like, do you really think somebody who's drugged out is really running all that stuff?
Yeah. Come
Maybe.
on.
I'm sure he's deeply involved, but there is nobody. I have never seen a drug addict that can do any high level thinking.
Yeah.
Certainly not at that energy level for that long.
Right.
Somebody else is behind it, and
Right.
apparently it's a woman. Actually, she
Oh,
must.
really?
I'd love to meet her. I
Okay,
mean,
well, and that's not
I
even the
bet she's not on
original.
drugs.
No, I'm sure not. And we're not even seeing the original version of not only him, but so many others. I don't even know how many Elons we've seen, and I'm not even talking about stand-ins. But that's not the, I don't know, based
They
on
keep
what.
remaking themselves because they're actors and they're
Yes,
actresses, right?
yes,
I
right,
mean, they're
because they're
literally
puppets.
actors.
Yes,
Oh
yes,
yeah.
they're literally actors and puppets. So, okay, how do we get to the puppeteers? And I think I know you've talked about this, and I've thought about this a lot. How do we take out the UN? Because I don't know who runs the UN, but certainly they're puppeteers for a lot of the people that we see. I'm sure what's going on in Panama, for instance. And do you want to talk about that and how do we get rid of them? And if Trump is not really on our side, how do we get rid of them? What do you think about that?
The first thing to do is people are saying, well, what choice do we have? We have to take him or that. We have to take Abbott or Beto, right? Keep in mind, before the first election with Trump, Newt Gingrich called me up. I was just
Hmm.
on a group call with him earlier this week, right? But he called up. When was that? 2016. I was at my office in Thailand, and he was trying to get support for Trump. And I'm like, I'm never going to vote for a Clinton. But I mean, but at the same time, don't you have somebody else? I don't trust that guy, right? And so this was 2016, I think, right? And I just didn't trust him. I didn't feel right, and I trust my senses, right?
Hmm.
My senses have kept me alive in a lot of places,
Yeah.
and I trust them deeply, and I didn't trust him, and so, but he's like, well, he's our guy, right? And I'm like, okay, he's not my guy, and so but I'm not forced to choose between Clinton and Trump. That's the red pill, blue pill
Yeah.
nonsense,
Right.
right? And I'm
Yes.
not in here in Texas. Why would I be forced to take Abbott or Beto when there were people like quite a lot of other people running, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to choose one or the other. That's a false choice. It's just implanted, right?
Hmm.
And let me say one thing about information war. The high ground in information war is specific words, right? The first thing that our enemies try to do is take the high ground of specific words. Yeah, and so and like it's the same on the border. And quite a few of people have gotten upset with me. They'll send me articles to publish, or like, hey, can you publish my article? I'm like, you called it border crisis. And I'm like, I didn't even read the rest. I've already told you 10 times. If you send an article to me with border crisis, I'm not even gonna read it
Yeah.
because I'm very busy, right? I know the border. I've been across the whole damn thing, right? I
Right.
spent months sleeping on the ground down there, right?
Yeah.
And it is what's called an invasion, right? These are not this isn't abort. That would be like the Germans saying we have a beach crisis on D-Day, right? And it's like, yeah, you got a beach crisis, all right. We just parachuted people behind you, and naval gunfire. That's what's happening, right? It's an actual war, and we're here to actually kill you and conquer your country.
Hmm.
That's what that was about.
Hmm.
That's what this is about. And so when they hit me with and people get angry at sometimes. They're like, well, you don't understand. It's going to alienate readers, is what they always tell me. I'm like, you're damn skippy. It's alienating readers. I'm alienated when you can't even get the right words right. If you don't have the guts to get the right words in there, you don't have the guts to tell the truth in the rest of the story.
Yes, there
You
we
can't
go.
even if you want to make water, I need some hydrogen and I need some oxygen. We'll burn them together and we got some steam, right?
Yeah.
Water. But if you want to get me some hydrogen and some sulfur and burn those together, I don't want to breathe it,
Mm.
right? I mean, you got one of the elements wrong. All else that follows is not going to be grandma's cake, right? So at the end of the day, those words are important, and one of the ways to police up those words is to be one of those people that are upset because they chose the one. And I'm like, you can make your choice. You can upset them or upset me, and I'm the one that will actually attack you in public in front of millions of people, right? Because if you can't get that right, I'm going to call you out, right? I'm going to call you out. We're in a state of war, and I'm not playing around, right? I mean, this is very important. That's why Doper Joe Rogan, when he's over there smoking dope in front of millions of people,
Yeah.
millions of young people, and people
Yeah.
say, "Don't you understand? You can get on a show." Like, Alex Jones asked me one day or numerous times. He's like, "I can help you get on Joe's show." Probably one time we were live, and I said, "I'm not going." I said, I don't remember what I said, but it was something to the effect of, "I'm not going on Doper Joe Rogan's show," which upset a lot of people. And they're like, "Don't you understand? You can reach an audience." I'm like, "No, let me tell you how I reach an audience. He's got a big tree, and I got a little hatchet. One chop at a time. I will chop that tree down."
Okay, so let's talk about that then, because I wonder how we chop this tree down and how, I mean, to get rid of the UN, which means defund the UN, there has to be both the will and the power to do that, right? And that means the executive and legislative branches. So, ha-
Yeah, I was on a call on about roughly May 15th, more or less. And it was Marjorie Taylor Greene's people, right? And they were doing the Doge crap, right? And I
mhm.
call it crap because what have they done, right?
Yeah,
And
it
so,
went
right.
nowhere. Yeah.
And so, and so we're on this call. It was actually Marjorie Taylor Greene's people. And so they're talking about, okay, this is mid-May of 2025 when this call happened, right? And so they're talking about basically discussing if they should plan to plan.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you should be executing, right?
Yeah.
They were discussing whether or not we should go after NGOs. If we do, should we
Yeah.
go after a couple small ones to set an example? I'm like, no, defund the United Nations, period. Okay, you chop down the United Nations, you defund them, and whatever's brown, mow it down. Whatever's green, chop it down, right? So you defund them, and a lot of it's just going to wither. And then whatever's still green, attack. Go for it, right? I mean, it can be done. It can easily be done. It takes this stuff called testosterone, right? That's why our borders are open. Listen, when people don't have the actual courage to call an invasion, and remember, cowardice contains the seeds of treason. I've never, when this started really coming down, I purged my ranks of anybody that showed any cowardice, right? Because cowards will always stab you in the back. You have to purge your ranks of people around you that are cowards. They're going to be nothing but trouble, right? I mean, they're still out there, but at the same time, I don't have to have them close to me, right? Because I know what's going to come of this. They're going to call it, illegal migration. And so it just continues because it's just a migration problem. No, it's not. They're coming to kill you, right?
Yeah.
They're not. When I was in Ireland warning about, now you see the Irish things that are happening now. And again, everybody's afraid to call it what it is. If you can't even utter the right word out of your mouth, you don't have the testosterone to stand up to these guys. They're going to take your women. They're going to kill you and take your women, right?
Well, and
Period.
they're even
This is law of
saying
the
so.
jungle.
They're even saying so. The Muslims, the Sharia law Muslims are saying we're here to kill you and take over and kill you and take your women. Your women belong to us. Your country belongs to. They're not
Yeah.
even.
When I'm saying this, it's not random.
Yeah.
I lived most of my life in these countries. Some fish don't mix well in the same aquarium, right? These firmwares, our cultural firmwares, are in sharp delineation. I mean, in their way, it's like, I'm stronger, I can take your women, right?
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Planet of the Apes, right? And a lot of people can't get that through their head, and they'll be dead. There are a lot of people already that have been raped and killed because they're like, oh no, I thought he was going to make a great boyfriend, and you're dead, right? I mean, how often does this happen? All the time, all the time. I mean, how many times do we see this? Oh, I took him home, and you're dead,
So,
right? I mean,
well,
you see it in the news all the time.
right. No, I know. And I'm only laughing because sometimes that helps, get through. In fact, I don't know how I could tolerate anything without humor, but one thing I keep asking is where are our men? Where are our men? We need our men. And you were referring to testosterone. It's one reason so happy to interview you is
Yeah.
that that's the kind of energy that we need. And the open society up to a point, of course, is all very well. And I would certainly rather be here than in a Sharia law country or something with a bag over my head. But
Yeah.
still, we need and that's one reason. I mean, that's been a big part of the brainwashing too, and I think the hormonal washing that's been happening.
I'm going to start using that hormonal washing. Right.
Go
And
for
how
it.
are you going to do it? You get people to lay around smoking dope going, what do you mean? People don't get violent when they're on smoking marijuana. I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, they do, you idiot. I'm out with Antifa all the time.
yeah,
They'll hit you in the head with a baseball bat, and they all smell like dope.
yeah.
They'll hit me with this crap. You know what I mean? Why is it the newest generation always thinks they're the expert on drugs, right?
Right.
They always think like, we know more
And,
about drugs. What do you know about
and on
drugs?
child rearing, also,
It's
they're
like,
experts on child rearing.
oh my gosh. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like at the end of the day,
Well, so
if you want to destroy a country, the WMD you're going to hit them with is drugs. You
yeah,
read Rape of the Mind. He talks about how the Nazis did it and so many
yeah,
different other people.
yes.
They drug their own people to be more aggressive and alert. They drug
Mhm.
the other people to dumb them down.
Right. And go
It's
crazy, like in Berlin before anyway. Um, so, okay, so we need our men, right? We need the balls to do this. And that doesn't mean that women can't also back that, although, and there are women in the armed forces, of course, but you guys are stronger, and this is what you're built for. You're built to
women need to have
protect.
that expectation. When you see a man, he's not your girlfriend, right? He's
Right,
not, you know what I
no.
mean? He's not your girlfriend. Stop. Why do you want somebody around there that's really confused? They don't even know if they're a
No,
man or a woman.
right,
How are they going to
right.
know who's beating on the door? What are they going to do,
No,
right?
no,
I
that's
mean,
just
if you're a lot of people are like, when they get to my front door, they're going to see some resistance. Brother, by the time they get to your front door, you have lost the war.
Yeah.
You have lost the war. They have already cleared the beach, right?
Yeah.
They're
Right.
not on the border anymore. They
Right.
have
They're at your
invaded you,
house.
Camp of the Saints, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now, when it came to building the Panama Canal, the French, they got wiped out largely by a bad plan and mosquitoes. Mosquitoes. But once the entomologist realized mosquitoes were the vector, and they realized it was three main types of mosquitoes: Culex, Anopheles, and Aedes, right? They figured out it was those three out of, there were more than 50 in Panama. I don't know how many they've finally categorized, but by 120 years ago, they knew that 125 years ago, they knew there was about 50, at least 50 types. But there was three types causing the problems: Culex, Aedes, and Anopheles, right? And so once they knew that, then you always got to get your entomologist there. They started realizing, hey, this is how they live. They got to breathe 4 times a minute or whatever, right? So we can put oil in the water. That's one thing we can do. They usually don't travel more than 1,000 feet from where they were born, where they came out of the miasma, and that's why we started cutting yards back very far, right? That's where that came from. So we started cutting the jungle back. Everybody keep your yards manicured. Now we have yard competition in Florida, but a lot of people don't realize that was actually born in fighting mosquitoes, right? They don't realize that Jews might not eat pork, but there's some reason way back there why they don't read it. There's some firmware reason for that.
Yes.
Right
Yes.
now,
Always.
it doesn't matter now, but there was a reason at some time, and
Yeah.
that reason may come true again, right? But back with mosquitoes, keeping that yard cut back and keeping that stagnant water poured out and those sorts of things are very important. And so once we realized those three types of mosquitoes were doing it, and the entomologists studied their life cycles, the United States Army went to war on those mosquitoes and clonked them in the head. And keep in mind, the two most deadly things probably in all human history for humans are humans and mosquitoes, right? I mean, humans and mosquitoes. I mean, I'm not sure which is killed more, but it's a pretty serious competition for the gold medal, right? And, you can't include yellow fever because mosquitoes are spreading yellow fever, malaria, dengue, Chagres, all kinds. I mean, I don't even know how many diseases mosquitoes, encephalitis of this sort or that sort. How many diseases do mosquitoes spread? Nobody even knows, right? But once we realized which ones were doing it and they had names on them, we addressed them. That's what has to be done now, unflinchingly. Who specifically is doing this? Because it's not a lot of people. It's the Wizard of Oz. It's the few people behind the curtains,
Right?
And they are not made out of titanium. They're made out of the same flesh that we are.
Okay.
Right?
And they have puppets like. Just to touch on Abbott for a moment, obviously we wouldn't have a problem in Texas. There doesn't need to be a problem in Texas if Abbott didn't allow it. He's got his feet in different camps and whatever.
Abbott's a corporal in this war, right? He's a corporal in the enemy's army. He's not here. He's a big shot. He's the governor,
Right.
but he's a
Yeah.
corporal in the big scheme of things.
But meanwhile, we have an invasion over the Texas border, and that wouldn't be happening if a governor was actually, for Texas, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying we're going to take, if we want to take out the man behind the curtain, how do we get to him? There's this whole army of other puppeteers with puppeteers below them and puppeteers and puppets below them, and where do we aim? And
Well,
how does that happen?
we're going to have to figure out exactly specifically who they are and just start publishing their names everywhere for start. Just knowing who they are will mitigate them a lot more, right?
Hmm.
I mean, but keep in mind, there's different oligarchical structures too. It's not like there's just one. There are the Chinese. There are the
Right.
people that are, so they're like, one example is HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. They are, okay, who actually installed Mayorkas into HIAS as a board member? He was a board member on HIAS, and then he went over from HIAS to the chief of Homeland Security, right? But again, and you look at him with Biden years ago, before all that, he was right beside Biden
Yeah.
saying,
Right.
and Biden's like, yeah, we're gonna flood the United States with, and we're gonna basically destroy the United States, and Mayorkas sitting right beside him. right? I mean, so that's one man behind the curtain, or he's one step, maximum 2 steps removed from the big players, maximum 2 steps. If he's not meeting with them personally, he's only 1 step removed,
Mm-hmm.
right? People like Biden. Biden, of course, he's president, but you got to keep in mind at that level, again, not corporal, more like colonel. You know what I mean? They're not
Mm-hmm.
running the show.
Mm-hmm.
Trump is not running the show.
Oh, so I always think that anyone who actually is running the show, you're never going to see them or hear their name.
They're too smart. They're too smart for that.
So
But they will be.
Soros and everyone, they're still not
Soros,
the top.
yeah, they're not the top because Soros wouldn't be.
He wouldn't be
Soros.
known, right?
No, no. You just they're condoms basically, right? Like Trump is a condom, Biden's a condom. They are Abbott. They're all prophylactics to guard, and they're disposable, right? That's exactly what they are at the end of the day, right? I mean, let's be realistic. I hate to be crude to say that, but that's actually what they are. Maybe I should say they're gloves. They're rubber gloves. How's that? Right. So, whatever. But at the end of the day, that's all they are. So, who's the step behind them? Now, keep in mind, the same people don't run China. China is a different oligarchical
And
structure,
when you say
as is
China, we're
Russia.
talking about CCP, right? When you say
Yeah.
China
Yeah. Let me
interchangeable
be
with
careful with that
CCP.
because, yeah, that's a good point because China is actually more like the Soviet Union was. China is an
Mm.
amalgam of different. I've been all over China. China is an amalgam of many different cultures and languages. And the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, they want everybody to speak Mandarin. They don't want them speaking Fujianese or Cantonese or any of that. They want them to speak Mandarin and they want them to speak their dialect of Mandarin. And they want them to know their version of history and that's it. And that's the way she rolled. And they're working on it. Now, will they succeed? Ultimately, I doubt it. Nobody has ever succeeded taking over the world yet. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe somebody will.
right,
There's
right.
there's because there's different oligarch. One of the things in the well, not just the past, but right now is people select which oligarchical structure they're going to align with. That's one of the survival strategy of some of the Jewish tribes, actually, is to align with who they think is in their best interest,
I think
right?
the Navajo did that too.
That's what people do in general. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of Arabs do that. It's
right.
not, it's,
It's natural. Women
yeah,
are going to
yeah.
do that,
Oh, women are definitely going to do that. Women are going to, they're going to align with who's got genetically.
The
That's what you're
strong
going to
guy,
do.
yeah. Hmm.
It's not just, I think it's biological, actually,
Hmm.
right?
I
I
do
mean,
too.
that you're going to obviously, hey, if that guy comes and kills my weak man, I'm suddenly his man at
Yeah,
the end of the day.
right.
I mean, in reality,
Yeah,
you are, and I mean, if they take you, then you can choose to do whatever to yourself or fight him or whatever, or
yeah,
just submit.
yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
yeah.
And look at so many men submit by calling it migration. That's a submission. You're on your knees when you're
Yeah.
calling it submission.
Yes.
You're on your knees when you're calling it a vaccine.
Yeah.
You're actually just on your knees. You've submitted.
Yeah.
You won't
Yeah.
even man up to call it what it is.
Yeah.
And that's important. First, seize those words. And just because it upsets people, how about you being upset? Be one of the people that's upset, right?
That's a
And there's
really
many
good
ways you can,
point. That's a
yeah,
really good point because I think most people don't want to offend or upset because it will be because it feels really dangerous and being ostracized feels really dangerous. Look at how successful Facebook has been. And by the way, I think that's what Rogan and what's his name, Rocket Boy, were doing, smoking. I remember seeing that and going, oh, when I saw them doing that, because it makes everyone feel like, oh yeah, they're my buddy. I could hang out with them and,
right.
you know,
Yeah. That was a direct attack. I know what that was. That wasn't actually an attack. That wasn't. That wasn't like. It doesn't mean that rocket. Okay, again, we have to reconcile these equations, right?
okay.
X Y Z squared, whatever, over the line equals. He's a genius. Okay, so how does it? Okay, so does a genius come on and smoke dope in front of tens of millions of young people? It doesn't equal that.
No,
Genius doesn't equal I'm that stupid,
no,
right? The equations don't balance.
no, it doesn't
Something is
add up.
wrong here,
No,
right?
yeah.
I mean, it's
X
mice.
is
Remember
not
the four
equal Y.
no, the four main cheeses of recruitment, there's four main cheeses, right? And almost everybody that gets recruited is recruited by one of these cheeses. They're mice. They're called mice for the mousetrap. Mice. Money, ideology, coercion, and ego. Money, ideology, coercion, ego. Epstein Island. That's probably a bit of ego. I get to go to Epstein Island and hang out with all the other freaks, but they're billionaire freaks. And and then the next thing you know, there's a 4K film of you or whatever it was back then, 1080p or something. And and with the greatest audio in the world, right?
Yeah.
And okay, here you go. So now they've got you at least under coercion. And a lot of people are going to fall for at least three of those cheeses, right?
Mm-hmm.
People like me, I'm ideologically driven.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very ideologically driven, right? So it's very hard. Like my ego gets subordinated to my ideology.
Yeah.
It's hard to coerce me because I'll fight. I'll actually fight, right? If somebody tried to coerce me, then they better be able to hide, right? And so in money, I've turned down a lot. I've access. I mean, how many times have people told me you can have the keys to the kingdom, right? I mean, you wouldn't believe. I mean, I was with Eric Carilla, the CENTCOM commander, for 5 months in combat, right? He got shot right in front of me, right? I gave him covering fire. I remember him saying at one point, you can have the keys to the kingdom, right? I'm like, but I see what they're doing.
Yes.
Right?
So the only thing I can...
I'm ideologically driven.
Right.
So if you read Rape of the Mind, people like me, we get killed, right? Because we're the ones they can't negotiate with.
Right.
That's why they want to break you away from religion. Mm-hmm. That's why they don't want you believing in God. Sorry, this microphone. They don't want you believing in God because then you don't believe in them. Right?
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you have a higher power. I'm not subordinate. I'm not getting on my knees to your trans culture with all these.
No, they want you to believe in the state, and that's why they have to wipe out religion, which is also a form of, that can really be a form of manipulation. Absolutely, that's a huge tool that the state uses. So stepping away from that for a moment, I just wanted to say that the experience that I have that's similar, but nowhere near as dangerous, perhaps, is I've spent a lot of time in Los Angeles early in my career when I was showcasing for record labels back in the day, for major labels. And I had no interest in offers that came along to me. I didn't even know what bullets I was dodging and what I was turning down. Mm-hmm. And then when it started to become clear how the system works, Hollywood, along with everything else, but just talking about Hollywood for the moment, I always said no to any sort of invitations because I had my own vision, my own artistic vision, and because I didn't trust them, and that's just instinct, and that goes back to what you were saying about at the beginning of this interview about intuition. So you educated yourself, but it comes down to intuition because there's knowledge, but then there's wisdom, and that's, you can't beat that. That's the only thing that I mean, I suppose torture. I mean, look at 1984 and all that. But
I'll bet you most of the mistakes you've made in your life, you overrode your intuition.
Exactly.
I'll bet you. I'll bet your intuition said, "Don't do that," and you're like, "Yeah,
right." But and then you justify. Exactly. So you justify. I've been lucky, but just saying. My ego couldn't be, there was no coercion wasn't happening, but my ego button was being pushed. And I'm like, no, I don't care about celebrity. I don't care. So, but back to what you were saying, and what I wanted to tie in with that and with the issue of using religion to manipulate is, I think we have to be really careful too about the idea of a savior. Then people look to Trump or whoever it is that they look to, that a savior is going to come in. Yep. And that isn't to say that some of those people looking to that savior aren't going to work their asses off to protect everybody. And I so appreciate and respect that more than I can even express. But there's also this point, and those people also have a deep sense of responsibility and personal responsibility, right? And if there's always going to be a savior, whether it's Trump or Rocket Boy or I don't know, then maybe you don't have to do anything. I don't know. What's your experience with that?
Oh yeah, it's the daddy syndrome. When I was in India and I was studying cults, it was fascinating. One of the most fascinating things I've ever done. India is like a particle accelerator for cults. You can take one cult, almost the speed of light and smash it into another one, and almost in real time another one pops out.
Wow.
These syncretisms. It's like a synchrotron, but it's a syncretism-tron.
Huh.
It's a syncretism. You take two belief systems and they mix
And
together.
they syncretize. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
yeah, so religions and beliefs, they're constantly bifurcating and they're
for sure.
constantly syncretizing.
Yes.
They're doing both,
Right.
and it's like a river delta and a
Yeah, yeah.
and that's a but you go to India and everything's happening at a much higher rate and a much
Hmm.
higher energies.
Hmm.
And one of the things I noticed, there was a lot of Westerners that come, and there's people that have studied this in detail. Actually, there's one book called, this is not really a study, it's just sort of a treaty, like a little book on it called Karma Cola. People like looking
Oh,
for,
I feel
it's
like
called
I've heard of
Karma Cola.
that.
But
Yeah.
there was actually a French psychologist that studied, what did he call it? The India syndrome, I think he called it. But people go to India and they kind of become transfixed with it, right? And but so I saw a lot of people in India, because I spent about a year there, and I was studying cults, right? That's what, I mean, that's the place to do it. It's like, you go to CERN to study particle accelerators. You go to India and so the people that were looking for gurus, and
Yes.
anytime they're like, I'm looking for a guru, and I'm like, oh, ye shall find one.
Yeah.
As soon as you say that, I mean, that's like the college girl saying, I'm so drunk. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Yeah, that's
oh,
the college girl mating call. That's what
oh,
you come
oh.
out to India saying, I'm looking for a guru, and they're gonna descend from the trees and the woodwork, right? And what these people that were looking for gurus were constantly, uh, I mean, I saw one commonality is they were looking for a daddy figure. And notice when Trump is, so I'm going back to my memories and my studies in different places. I infiltrated a cult in California and lived with them and that sort of thing. It's pretty wild. But
Ooh.
one of the things I noticed is that a lot of them were looking for a father figure, right?
Yes.
So
Right.
when Trump gets elected, notice how many people are going, Daddy's home. I'm like,
Oh.
oh Lord, oh yeah, it was all over the place, and I'm like,
Oh.
wow, and
Wow.
and they're and I was noticing his information warriors behind him were going, they were feeding that because
Hmm.
that is, hey, Daddy's coming to save us. How many
Hmm.
people did I hear say, well, I voted for Trump, and he's elected, I'm done now, I can go back to chicken wings and Hooters, right? I
Yes.
mean, quite
No,
literally,
I
right?
think there's a lot of surrender that happened with that election.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
Daddy's home. Y'all go back to sleep now. Watch TV. Quite literally, go do whatever you want to do. Daddy will
Yeah.
take care of it.
Right.
Yeah, he'll take care of it all right.
Yeah.
And yeah, remember, he's still sticking with the death jab that killed your cousin, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, and I mean, he literally, seriously, and that cousin's probably reaching out from the grave to vote for him again. And one of the things I found about cults is you'll never see the cult that you're in. Never see the one that you're in. Everybody else's cults are super obvious.
So how do these people operate? Someone like Abbott, who's lower on the chain, but and you're talking about Trump here, they've got to play it right. They have to play it. So they have to play it right. So they have to be for enough things that convince their base that they're on their side, but then do stuff like, oh yeah, but we're going to let the Chinese students continue to come and study here.
Yeah, they
How,
do a kayfabe. They do a kayfabe. And one of the things that I'll tell you one technique. I saw Trump use it, what, about 10 days or 2 weeks ago, right? This is a specific technique and it deals with Texas. So there's this bill called 287G, right? 287G is a bill or a provision, actually, in which governments around the United States, state governments, local governments, if they pick up somebody at a traffic stop or shoplifting or whatever, they can run that person through the ICE computers, right? So if that person is not supposed to be here, you can detain them and ICE will come pick them up, right? Now, actually, only Florida. Every other state's a sanctuary state. Actually, Florida is too, but Florida actually, DeSantis is like, we're all in on 287G at all levels, right?
Mhm.
And but here in Texas, a huge amount of the state doesn't want to be involved in 287G, right? At all. I mean, and so they totally pushed back on it. So I know one of the people that wrote a good law for Texas, or he was part of the people who wrote the law, and so that's not the law that just got ratified recently in about 2 weeks ago or less, right? It was another one that was really bad. In other
Yeah.
words, most of the state of Texas, the law enforcement are not going to be involved. Sorry, I thought I heard something outside. They're not going to be something that they're not going to actually turn over people. They don't want to be involved in it. And so even the XO for the Department of Public Safety here in Texas, which is like their sort of FBI, right? It's like their FDLE, right? Which Florida Department of Law Enforcement for the Floridians out there, right? So it's like, so their number two guy was like, no, we don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, you can
Yeah.
see him on one of their it's about a month or a month and a half old video that's on the official Texas government website. But anyway, but they don't want to do it. The actual state of Texas doesn't want to do it. Governor Abbott doesn't want to do it. So they passed this other law. They passed another law for 287G, just like I said a couple of weeks ago. And Trump immediately congratulates them and says, "Hey, that's really great that you did this, but I'm going to be watching to make sure you do it right." He put that on his truth, right? You can find what he published because I retweeted it or whatever. I took it from his truth and put it on X, Rocket Boys thing. And immediately the people that wrote the law that would have been good are like, he just stabbed us in the back. He just shanked us. I sent it to Bannon too. I'm like, look, Trump just shanked us. But in the meantime, he does a Truth Social and he goes, "Great job. Great job. They just signed exactly the worst bill. It looks like you're doing something, but you're not." Or if you look at Abbott down at the border, I was physically present with Doc Chambers, the retired Green Beret doctor,
Yep.
Pete Chambers,
Hmm.
and Doc, and we're down there together. And there's Abbott, down at the border. Here we are closing the border and yada yada. And all the cameras are putting at Abbott. And I'm like, look, just right over here, it's wide open and people are crossing right here.
At
And the
at
cameras
the
don't bother
time.
to do that. They don't even go like that, And
Yeah.
so then my
Yeah.
friends and the conservative friends I have in Texas are like, "What are you so upset with Abbott for?" I'm like, because the border's still wide open.
Yeah. How do you think people got in all this time?
He
If
starts
he did,
bussing them up to New York, and everybody's like, "Don't you see?" But see, he's pandering to their emotions, and they're like,
totally.
"Look," and everybody's like, "Yeah, he's teaching those guys." I'm like, "He's clearing the beaches of Normandy so
Yeah,
more can come on, right?" He's
exactly. It
like,
seemed to me
he's like,
that was,
"Traffic this way, traffic this way."
yeah, that was a really smart PR trick, and it was funny and, surprising and all that kind of stuff. It was a perfect
Made
PR
people feel
trick.
happy. Go
Made
back
people
drinking your
feel,
alcohol,
ha
smoking dope.
ha, you're on Nantucket now, whatever Nantucket has to deal with this now. But
Yeah, so you
meanwhile,
send the cameras up there and you look at the people and they're like, "Oh, why are you sending them here? It's a perfect distraction."
right.
Meanwhile, the beach of
And
Normandy has been cleared
right.
and
And
here comes
meanwhile, those
more.
people have been bussed for free deeper into the interior.
Yep,
That's what
that's
it looked like
exactly
to
what he was doing.
me.
Can you imagine how the evil people that are doing this are sitting back just laughing? These
Yeah.
fools are so stupid they deserve it.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally, that's not only how they think, they say it, right? I
Right.
mean, they're very clear.
I'm
They're
sure
like,
they
if you're
do.
that stupid, you deserve it.
Well, I
If you're that
know
weak and
we
cowardly, we're just going to do it.
we know they say that because we've heard stuff that was supposed to be off mic over the years, and they've said how stupid that they think that we are. And also that's the satanic thing too, right? You
Giving
you
them permission.
yeah, giving them permission by showing them exactly what you're gonna do, and you just and
Yeah,
if they don't object, yeah.
they just say it. They just say it. I'm doing it. And
Hmm.
Trump will just do it with a smile. He'll go, "Yeah, the China bill is so great," and yada, 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 yada. And the
Yeah.
Chinese will still be able to come to our schools. This is so great. Everybody's like, "What?" You should see
Yeah.
my inbox this morning. And still, we're in June of 2025, and they're still surprised. I'm like, how did you even get in my inbox? If in June of 2025, you're still surprised that he's
So
going to shank us again.
So what happens now? Because you're well, uh, we have a little bit of time, well, a pretty good amount of time left. I wanted to see if you wanted to get into because you have so much experience in Panama, the Darien Gap. I know just the other day you were. I think you were getting on hold of the Panamanian president. At least I hope you were, because I hope he's listening to you when it comes to what's going on with the canal and the CCP getting a hold of that, and how did we ever let it go, and is Jimmy Carter actually a Kennedy, and I don't even know where to begin with all that stuff. But Where are we with the Panama Canal? What do you see there, and what's
I
coming?
don't, while I was there on this last trip, that was about a 5 month trip. I think I was there the last time, which I left, a month or so ago and came up to Texas. Um, what do I think? Since Biden was installed, I've spent more than a year in Panama. That's how important it is, and I hate to waste time. I'm there because it's so important.
Yeah,
And it's very clear. Okay, since I was there, Secretary of State Rubio came, so that's pretty serious.
yeah.
Uh, Secretary of Defense Hegseth came. That's obviously pretty serious. And then the DCI came, the director of CIA. He was there, but that was not in the news to my knowledge. That's obviously pretty serious. I don't
Mhm.
think there was a word about that in the news at all. Ratcliffe, he's not on our side. And but he's director of CIA, but he was there. So a lot of other people like that have come. So what we've got is the whole table has come. There's going to be a globalist fight from different oligarchical structures
Mhm.
for Panama, right? And the main oligarchical structures that I see and the biggest, most influential forces will be Zionist and CCP. They're in
Mhm.
competition with each other. They're going to fight for it using the United States as their muscle, right? And so that's clearly what's shaping up in Argentina as well, and quite a few other places. And so now what I'm seeing at the moment is China is still making progress. For instance, with the anthropological warfare, the seven tribes uniting along with Suntrax against the government, and just Kuna just reached out to China and asking for help publicly. Yeah, which is, obviously an information game, but at the same time, it has real effects. Again, let me repeat, the Kuna revolutionary flag is at the Chinese memorial right beside the Panama Canal. I took Laura Logan there, Masako Ganaha, and Vandersteel, quite a lot. I took many, many people there and showed them that. Like, here's the Kuna revolutionary flag. It's a brand new flag on a brand new flagpole and there's no evidence on that flag I can see where it came from, who made it. There's no the flagpole is new, but it doesn't. I don't know who actually manufactured it, but I know how these things work. Because I've been watching these around the world for decades, right? So so when I see two different information wars in the same memorial, obviously there's a connection, right? And obviously China has been using the Kuna. They work with the Kuna and the Imbra Wunan Indians in the Darien, especially Imbra and Kuna, to bring the Chinese through South America through the Darien. They work with Kuna and Imbra, right? So that's specifically who they work with. The Kuna help the Chinese cross the Darien Gap, as do Imbra, but especially Kuna, right? And so, especially Kuna for the Imbra. Especially Kuna for the Chinese. The Imbra help with others, but and Chinese. But the bottom line is they already have a very serious working relationship together on that. And it's also clear that Chinese are buying up a lot of property in Darien, right? And this is stuff that's not, I'm telling you stuff that's not in the news at all.
Yeah.
So anybody that's like very serious investor types, go down there and check it out. They're building those two bridges at the end of Ivica, which is where Highway 1 ends, near El Real, and those are heading straight to Colombia. Now everybody keeps saying they're not going to go to Colombia. Those people either are wrong or they are lying. So they are either wrong or they are lying. I found those two bridges myself because I kept going down there looking, wondering for about 3 years. I was going down there often looking to see if they were building any bridges down there. And about a year and a half ago, I found them. Boom, there they are. Right.
So is
So
this part of the Belt and Road then?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I was looking, because I know essentially their game plan. They're going to bridge through the Darien Gap, right?
Yeah.
That's why I
Right.
kept, when I was down there looking at the invasion flows and other things, I would also check to see if they're building the road. Now, once they've got that road built, the invasion can go hyperspace, right? Now, keep in mind the architecture for the invasion is still completely in place. It's still completely there. And I'm not surprised by this. In fact, I've been publishing about it since before the inauguration. And I said, if they don't go for the United Nations within 1 week, the first thing you need to do in inauguration is obviously release the January 6th people and,
Yes.
and a few things like that need to be done immediately.
Yeah.
And then go right for the United Nations on about day 2, right? So
Yeah.
you should spend the first day getting everybody out of jail, and a few other things that are super high priority. And then bam, next priority is United Nations. And I published this. All these things you can see are online and they're still out there. Is if you haven't gone after United Nations in about the first week, you're not even serious, right?
Yeah.
We're in June.
Yeah.
We're in June, and there's still all the plumbing is still in place. So all we've done is turn off the water with a spring-loaded lever, and as soon as you take your arm off of it, poop. Now, keep in mind, Anthony Rubin and his brother are over in England right now, or maybe they were in France yesterday. And I think yesterday they were in France. That's somebody that I've taken to Darien, and we went across the border together and that sort of thing. And the invasions are still going thick in Europe. He was just
Yeah.
down in Africa, and
Yeah.
so it's not. So the whole architecture is there. It's just that our section has been mitigated for a while.
Yes, right.
But the architecture is still there. Food problems. I've been warning about famine now for 5 years.
Yeah.
We are going to end up with famines. That's crystal clear. It's all about conditions. That's one of the ways I was able to predict Nord Stream interruption and Groningen gas field and quite a few other things like the screw worms through the Darien Gap. I predicted that in writing numerous times more than 4 years ago. Look up my name in screwworm and you'll see more than 4 years ago I'm warning about screwworms coming through the Darien Gap, and now here they are, right? How am I able to predict all these things? Because my paradigm is proving to be very useful for predictions, right? It's not leaving me surprised. I'm able to predict way out in advance these things because we know what they're doing. We generally know a lot about their capabilities, and we know their intent, right? Their intent is clearly the intent of numerous of these oligarchical structures is to cause famine. That'll create a lot of HOP, human osmotic pressure, the push and the pull of migration. When you have famines and you have a road through the Darien Gap, you can put 500 million people up there. It might take a couple of years, but what are you going to do? You won't even stop when it's and so here it is. Natural gas. This natural gas you saw that was cut from Groningen and Nord Stream, and this is used in production of nitrogenous fertilizers, right? For the Haber-Bosch process, the Haber-Bosch process is named after two German chemists, Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch. Fritz Haber I'm sorry. Yeah, Fritz Haber wrote a book on thermodynamics in 1903, I think, and it described how he thought you could take the hydrogen off of natural gas and combine it with the nitrogen we're breathing and make ammonia. And with that, you could make explosives like ammonium nitrate or fertilizers like ammonium nitrate. You can make urea, good for explosives, good for fertilizer, basically fertilizer and explosives and other products, right? So and I think in 1908 he finally made a little bit. It was very difficult to make it though, so he made like a drop in a test tube type thing, and that's when Karl Bosch came along later, and he built, because he's the one that made it industrial. So Fritz Haber did it theoretically. He later made helped make Zyklon B to kill Jews in gas chambers and that sort of thing, and that upset a lot of people naturally, of course. So some people are like, you should get a Nobel Prize for the Haber-Bosch and probably be put in the gas chamber for the other thing, right? I mean, this is a kind of anyway. Two German chemists, Haber-Bosch, and so Karl Bosch, he is the one that took an industrial, and they first opened that BASF plant to make nitrogenous fertilizers at Ludwigshafen, Germany. That's the plant that Masako and I went to twice. So in 1914, they started doing that. The same year the canal opened in Panama, right? So in 1914, that they started making nitrogenous fertilizers at Ludwigshafen, Germany, on the Rhine River at BASF. That's why I went to BASF, because if I were the enemy and I wanted to make famine and deindustrialize Europe and do some other things, I would take out Nord Stream, because that would reduce the amount. So what I'm getting to is they're clearly setting conditions for famine, which will create HOP, human osmotic pressure. And now they've already got all these architectures look, we've already got like Los Angeles. How are you going to control Los Angeles? I saw some military guys on one of my chats the other day. The ones with combat experience in Iraq, especially in Iraq, they're seeing right through this. The ones who actually have combat experience in places like Baghdad and Mosul, and Bakuba and all those places out in Fallujah, they know what are 500 Marines going to do in Los Angeles? Send
Yeah.
50,000. What are they
Yeah,
going to do?
exactly.
They're not
Yeah.
going to do shit. You know what I mean? They're going to cause nothing but uprising, right?
Yeah.
I mean, excuse my language, but that's the fact,
Yeah.
right? And so what I'm getting to is Los Angeles is already thoroughly invaded, thoroughly invaded. California is deeply invaded.
I would
I mean,
say.
and
Yeah.
so it's not like, hey, we can stop it now and fix it. No, we've been warning about this for years. We have crossed the Rubicon. We're 5, 10 miles beyond the Rubicon River. We can't even see it behind us anymore. You are in a state of war. And that's what it comes down to at this point. Now it's going to be a state of, are they going to separate that off from Mexico? Keep in mind, the Mexican military has for generations, their command and general staff college, what do they plan for? What do they teach their people that are reaching the higher ranks? How to fight the United States.
Mhm.
That's what they've been teaching them for years. Their military has trained to fight the United States, and we go
And the
down there and help them train.
and the
Right?
Mexican president is certainly, not not doing
He
anything
just
about
declared
it.
war on us.
Yes,
He just declared
basically,
war on us.
really, I mean, get real. So, and wasn't it Kissinger who talked about, you have to control food, you control continents, you control money. Um, and we haven't even gotten into money, and maybe there's not really time for that, but that's a
Read
big,
Creature from Jekyll Island. That's a great book. I'm going to be on
totally.
with G. Edward Griffin next month,
Oh,
actually.
good. Okay.
And
Yeah.
everybody should read, if you haven't read it, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Yep.
I was on with his Red Pill Expo, last year, I think, when I was in Argentina. Yeah, last year. And so I've been recommending that book. And at one point he called me up and he's like, yo, thanks for recommending my book. And I'm like, thanks for writing it. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
seriously, I
So
mean,
that
that's a work of art.
because
Yeah.
that's a big part of this, and I think more people are aware of that maybe even than of what we've been talking about today because and it hits you in the pocketbook, you pay attention, right? So I think maybe more people are aware of that, of been going on with the financial system forever, forever and ever. I mean, this is what the USA, the founding fathers were, one of the things, a lot of them were trying to break away from that was already happening, but then, of course, we wound up with bankers too. So, um,
Yeah.
anyway, going on a side trip there regarding what Kissinger said, but one of the things he talked about was controlling food in
Yeah.
order to control the world.
And this has been done. I found various old books on how to depopulate or how depopulation is done, and these are like from the 1800s and stuff. I found
Yeah.
one book from 1830 something. I left it in Argentina. I got to go back and get it, but it's about controlling population with food, right? And
Yes.
but
Right.
and one of the books I found. What was the title of that book? I've got to get my hands on it, but I mean, and like get it as mine.
Right.
But
Right.
the book talked about how, it's basically describing how kings and queens should, sometimes you need more people. So
Right. Which we,
like what we do, you bring in the guest arbiters in Germany, right?
yeah.
But then how to depopulate them later, right? Whereas opposed and what's happened with places like Germany, they bring in, the economy's going up. We got to have the workers, and the economy goes down. We're stuck with the workers, and we don't have work for them, and they're different everything. And these fish aren't working well together in the same aquarium now, right?
Yeah.
It's the same we've done. And everybody constantly says, well, we need these people for working in the field. How many people you need for working in the fields? We've already got them all. I mean, Mexicans work in the fields and go home all the time. They're welcome. I mean, we're all intermarried and that sort of thing. But we don't need 10 million Somalis. We don't need
No.
all these people. You know what I mean?
No.
We don't need them. We don't
No.
need all these people.
No, it's not like they're coming in and they're engineers coming in and doctors coming in. This is not who's coming over the border. Hello?
Nope.
No,
Nope.
not a
No,
single one, not literally a single one.
no, and this list that I have of over 1 million people that came through the Darien during Biden's time, these people that keep murdering people, like the guy that murdered Laken Riley, Jose
Mhm.
Ibarra was his name.
Yeah,
He's on my list. I
yeah.
mean, that he came through the Darien Gap. I know which bus he got on. I know his birthday. I know what day he came in and where he came in, And the guy that shot the Jewish guy that Todd Bensman wrote about, he came across the Darien Gap on January 3rd, 2023, right?
Another thing for people to understand, I think, and you've talked about this before, I've heard you talk about this, is how, and others, how you can turn them back at the border, but they just circle back around and come back in. So it's got to be an ongoing, right?
This is the thing. If the United States had, again, what our ancestors called, balls, right? Testosterone, right? You know what I mean? Just like manliness, right?
Yeah,
Here's how you do it. Like people will say, well, we can't stop them once they land. No, you can't stop them because you're weak. You know how many people told me we can't close the Darien Gap? If I had a table full of generals sitting in front of me and one of them said we can't close the Darien Gap, I'd say, thank you for your comments. Please shut the door as you leave. Right?
right.
Okay. Now, okay. Thank you. Bye. And
Yeah,
we'll continue with the meeting with the men here and the women who know how to get shit done. Right?
yeah,
The Darien Gap is now closed. I said so many times that we can close it, and then so many people said no, it's impossible. I'm like, I'm down here all the time.
right.
One serious captain could close the Darien Gap. But when it comes to the border, when it comes to, hey, they land in Atlanta or whatever, so we got to take them in. Here's how you do it. They came in on this jet. Here's how we do it. That jet has now been taken. That jet has been quarantined. We're going to keep the jet, right? When DeSantis threatened to keep aircraft when they come in on those things, that's what you should do.
Yeah,
They come in on your jet and they're an illegal alien. Thank you for the 747.
yeah,
It now belongs to the state of Florida, right?
right, right.
Guess what? They wouldn't not you take one jet and it would be over. And I mean take it. And I don't mean like give it back next month, right?
Right.
And then it would not happen anymore, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it just basically take every aircraft, take every ship. They come in
Yeah.
on your ship,
It's
they do
so,
whatever.
yeah, it's doable. So as I was
They're
talking about,
staying in your hotel, we'll take your hotel. If
right,
they're coming in on your bus, we'll take your bus,
right,
right?
right.
I'm
Well,
not
and we'll
talking
take
about
your pot
Greyhounds. I'm talking about
manufacturing.
from the border. I'm sorry,
Right,
go ahead.
right, right. Well, and I've also heard you explain how what the Chinese do when they rotate people in here and they go to lily pads and places of safety, and some of those places where they can hide out are marijuana manufacturing farms, I think, right? So
Oh
so
yeah.
so you have a double
Again,
whammy there
so
of
think about that. Think about that from the Chinese perspective. Chinese have been using drugs in war for many years. They always blame it. They're professional victims. Professional victims are always predators.
yeah,
They are predators. They have been victims of opium war, no question about it. And they were involved in their own opium war, doing it to themselves too. There was that aspect. But also the Chinese have used opium and other drugs against Thailand or Siam, and now they use it against Thailand. They've used it against Formosa, and now they're using it against Taiwan. Yet last year I was in Taiwan talking with senior people there. They're like, yeah, China's putting fentanyl on our streets now. They're using it against Japan with not as much success because they're not really into the drugs, but some. And they're using it against many countries like Philippines, United States. They're using
absolutely.
it against all of the. So they claim like, oh, we were victims, and Americans are like, well, they were victims of the opium war, therefore they have a right to do it, right? It's like, okay, where do you come up with this crap? So somebody shot at them, and so now they can shoot your
Well, I
children.
think there's a
You know,
big guilt trip always that's being operated, and that seems like there are a lot of people who are, guilt is a powerful manipulator, and a lot of people
yeah,
who are very susceptible to that.
yeah.
And
People need to take their guilt and shovel it right out the window. If you
yeah,
didn't do it, you didn't do it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yep. And if anybody's guilty of anything, let's talk about China and the 50 million that they seem to have killed in Mao's Great Famine. There's a great book on this called Mao's Great Famine. Mao's Great Famine, right? 50 million are believed to have died in that famine or series of famines. In fact, Mao got his famine techniques from Stalin, who was doing them in, Holodomor and other parts of Soviet Union, right?
yeah,
So, I mean, these guys know how to run a famine, right?
yeah.
So, I mean, but China's always like, China has killed almost as many people as mosquitoes. You know what I'm saying? Mosquitoes would still beat China, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, China is a genocidal maniac. I've been up to Tibet. I mean, they are absolutely genocidal, and they think about it in those terms. Like, for instance, the Hong Kongers, they're I mean, petrified that China will eventually genocide them. Because the China the Hong Kongers, I've spent a lot of time in Hong Kong, in total probably close to a year, and then same in China as well, right? And so people go, China is Hong Kong, whatever. I get it. Okay, past that part, but the the Hong Konger people look different to me, right? I've spent so much time in Asia. I spent about almost 20 years in Asia. They actually look. I can tell them apart. Not
There's
all
more
of them.
white blood in Hong Kong, right? So that would genetically change.
Actually, a lot of Chinese are much whiter than I am.
Huh.
Yeah, they're whiter than both of us,
Uh-huh.
believe it or not. But a lot of the Hong Kongers are generally smaller. They have more delicate features, and yeah, they're much more. They look different. They look. I've been, Chinese. There's a lot of Chinese that are quite giant and quite white. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny when they talk about white privilege. I'm like, these people talking about, a lot of them are a lot whiter than I am, and it's like white privilege.
Well,
Where do you come up with this
Anglo, I
crap? Right?
guess,
Yeah.
Anglo, but yeah, no, that don't even get me started. For some
Yeah.
reason, Anglos don't deserve a homeland, but everyone else does. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. And the
mhm,
Irish. I
mhm.
mean, the Irish are, that's their little island, and yet Africa wants to come take it, naturally, of course. But keep in mind, when I was up in Ireland, I had this Uber driver or taxi driver or whatever it was, and he was from Nigeria. And I asked him, "Are you Igbo, or what tribe are you from?" He's like, "I think it was Igbo, actually, or Hausa. I think it was Igbo." But I said, "Anyway, are you?" I said, "The Nigerians that come here, of which there were a lot, by the way." I said, "Do you look for other Nigerians or other people from your tribe?" I already knew the answer to this. It's going to be from his tribe, of course, and then they'll try to find sub tribe. It's like Kurds don't go find Kurds; they go
Mhm,
find people from the same tribe that are Kurds, right?
mhm.
And it's just natural. It's that way. A lot of people that haven't, most people haven't had the opportunity to travel around the world and see so many, so much texture, right? To realize that, like, the Pashtun people, yeah, they're Pashtun, but they have tribes and sub tribes and families and all this different stuff, and they immediately conglomerate and goop around each other. Like the Chinese that come to America,
Sure.
the Fujianese go this area, the so and so's got that there. The
Yeah.
Indians that are coming in, aren't Indians. The Sikhs and the Hindus are fighting it out up in
Right.
Canada.
Right.
And the Sikhs also divide. I love Sikhs. I spend a lot of time with them. When I'm in India and places like that, and I always get along with Sikhs for some reason. But the Sikhs, they're going to fight, and they're going to fight. Sikhs are going to fight Sikhs. Look, when our ancestors came to America, we transplanted our wars to America. Next thing you know, you got the French fighting the English
Yep.
here, and the Spanish fighting everybody, and everybody's fighting everybody, and we're getting, okay, that Indian tribe's on my side. You're on. So next thing
Uh-huh.
you know, the Indians are like, hey, they're the Indians, here you go, and it's exactly what's still happening. We're transplanting their fights. You're going to end up with all these different wars. The Khalistani movement up in Canada will obviously, transplant itself down to the United States. That's the Sikhs separatist thing, right? And which, one of their leaders was apparently assassinated, and the Sikhs are blaming the Hindus, and anyway, they're going to fight it out. But anyway,
Mhm.
then between the Indians and the Chinese, they're going to fight it out. But you got to keep in mind, then within the Chinese, there's all kinds of different groups. Like the
Right.
Cantonese speaking Hong Kongers are not going to get along with the Mandarin speaking Chinese Communist Party people, as
Yeah.
a general rule. The Taiwanese, the sweet potato Chinese Taiwanese, the old Taiwanese know what I'm talking about. They're not going to get along with CCP either, right? And they might not necessarily always get along with the Hong Kongers. They get along pretty good, but the Japanese will get along great with the Taiwanese. You got to really be out in these fish tanks a long time to. I could go on for days about all these different relations, like Jimmy fights Sarah. Sarah
Right.
likes Lisa.
Right.
It's
Right.
like,
Right.
but it's just that on a cultural scale. So you got all these different tribes coming in with their own laws, right?
Hmm.
Like the Pashtun people with whatever tribe, or let's say they're Iraqi. What tribe are they? Americans like to break it down between religious sects. Is it Sunni or is it Shia?
Hmm.
Shia. That's not how it works. Like Al Jabari tribe, many of the people in the Al Jabari tribe, which is the biggest tribe in Iraq, many are Shia and many are Sunni. And I've asked many of them. What's more important to you, your tribe or Sunni versus Shia. And every single one of them, and I ask a lot, always tribe. Tribe comes
Right.
first. I
Mm.
mean, we might fight within our tribe, but if somebody comes to go after a Shia Al Jabari, I'm going to defend him, even if he's a Sunni, some other Al Tikriti tribe or something, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the tribes are gonna stick with tribe, and
Yes.
then and also the Pashtun are similar too. The Pashtun Wali is more important to them than Islam. Ask a Pashtun people if you know any. They'll tell you.
Huh. So, well, I think we're out of time and that someone's going to come knocking on your door. So I want to wrap this up before that happens. And since we're on the subject of tribe, maybe wrap it with that thought, which is that we're in search of the tribe of people who want sovereignty and truly do want, independence and are willing to actually tell the truth for it, which is what it seems like you're all about.
Yeah.
And just, I'm honored to have you on the show and just kind of
Thank you for
range
having me.
about. Yeah, yeah. And we could go on and on. I hope you'll come back. I know that you're going to be, on the
I'd
show,
love
but
to,
I know
but
you're
from
going to,
Japan.
yeah, you're going to be traveling. You'll be in Japan soon, right?
Yep, and then
Yeah.
Panama, and then
Okay.
probably right back here
Okay.
or
Okay.
somewhere in America.
Okay, all right. So we're going to stay in touch, but I before we do totally wrap it up, I will put in the show notes the information about your Substack and your X Twitter. But why don't you let
Yeah.
people know, and I'll put that right at the top. But let people know too before we sign off, so they can follow you, and maybe those who read Japanese might want to go after those books of yours.
Oh yeah, they're available on Amazon JP. And but they actually did quite well in Japan. But I'm on Substack. So Substack and my name Michael Yon, Yon, Yankee Oscar November. And yeah, I'm going to stay on it. And one of the things that women can be very helpful with, women are very important. You go to the Thai military museum and women are expected to be leaders. They're expected to be courageous like men. I've been in a lot of Thai fighting with a lot of casualties, like 3,000 actually, like 3,000 deaths and injuries in 2010 and 14. Some of the leading people leading the way were women, right? And Hong Kong. At one point when I was in the Hong Kong, they kicked me out after 7 months. I actually published, look, American men, look at these single Hong Kong women who are hot, educated, and throwing bricks at communists. Help them. Take one. Marry her. You know what I mean?
Right.
Look, there's anybody who's studying and throwing bricks at communists, that's wife material.
Right, right. That's your tribe. That's your
That's
tribe.
it. A woman
Yeah.
that'll throw rocks at communists. What's your phone
Marry
number?
her. So, okay, so
Write your phone number on that brick and throw it at me.
so people can find you on Substack at Michael Yon. I think on Twitter you're Michael underscore Yon, is that right? On X, I
That's
guess
right.
I should say.
On
Okay.
yep,
But
X.
Substack's really your thing. And people can find you on Amazon and begin to follow you because there's so much to be learned from what you have spent your life studying and what you by your nature just know and can offer. So just so thanks so much for being with
Thank
me.
you very much.
All right, folks. So come on back. Leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you. Michael would love to hear from you. Thanks for sticking with us for these 2 hours. It's been fabulous. I'm Carrington McDuffie. This is Star Seeds of Freedom.